There is no nobility in poverty. I have been a rich man and I have been a poor man, and I choose rich every fucking time.
Welcome everybody to the Money Time Podcast. I am your host, Adrian Hernandez, and with me today is a very inspiring, motivating individual for me. When I first moved to Orange County, California, there was a gentleman by the name of Derek Graham who introduced me to who you're about to meet. And I would walk into the gym and he was there before I was every single day. And we would go to the stairs. He was at the stairs, right? And I remember looking at him, I'm asking, Derek, how old is this guy? He's in phenomenal shape, right? and then I got to meet him and I got to realize that it was more than just health. This guy he embodies the health and wealth sector. And I'm just beyond inspired to have him on the show. And I just want to say thank you so much. You guys, let's welcome the one and only Mr. Bart Zandbergen. Let's
Adrian,
go.
thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Excited to have you on.
All right.
So a lot of people may or may not know who you are.
Yeah.
But if you don't mind, tell us who you are, where you're from.
Yeah. So I was born right here in Southern California. I'm one of the few born and raised my entire life here. I have 3 children, 2 grown, one child.
Yeah.
Married. I live in Laguna Beach, and I run a wealth management business.
That is awesome. So, and the wealth management business is called?
The Zanbergen Group, wealth management.
Love it. And you're Laguna Beach.
Laguna Beach.
Laguna Beach. Awesome. Yeah. So tell us about how you got here, because obviously you didn't just jump off a rock and ended up where you're at, right?
Yeah, that's right.
How did this story unfold? Because I've always been intrigued, and I've always wanted to ask, and I'm glad we're able to ask on a public platform.
Yeah. Well, and kind of prep for this, I said, well, if I'm ever going to be raw, now's the time to be raw and, and transparent. And part of it, it'll lead into when we ultimately get to the tenets of true wealth, especially when it gets to health.
Right.
So I was raised in Anaheim, and I became a large, out of shape, overweight child.
Really?
That was quite bullied. Yeah. So that was my early childhood.
Okay, all right.
My dad, yes, I told you to be raw and transparent. So my dad was a long-distance truck driver, wasn't around very much, and my mom was a stay-at-home homemaker. So we lived with very modest means, and that's a trigger right there. I knew early on that I wasn't unhappy with that life because we had everything that we needed. Didn't have all the bells and whistles, but had everything that we needed, right?
Right.
But I knew I wanted more, right?
Right.
So, time went on. I was blessed with a brain. I was an excellent student, and the time went on. And I know you're going to laugh when you hear the end of these next couple of sentences. So it's now junior high, and I'm kind of at the peak, mid-junior high, kind of peak of when I was getting bullied, peak of my just unhealth, position. Right. And I went to the movies. And you know what movie was out in about 1976 that was quite inspiring? Probably the year way before you were born.
Rambo?
Pretty close. Rocky.
Okay. So Rocky, I was going to say Rocky first.
Yeah,
okay.
Pretty darn close. Something in that movie triggered me. I got triggered. I remember being at the movies, eating popcorn.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure I rode my bike. It was Anaheim. Back in those days, you ride your bike stuff, right? It was a quarter or whatever you get in the movie. And I left that day a different person, literally a different person. I woke up the next morning. I played Little League, always, the bench sitter, was never any good at sports. Right. So I was not blessed with incredible coordination, but I did have discipline and a brain. So I got up the next morning and ran around the block. This is too good. Yeah, okay. Ran around the block. And my dad, I remember my dad happened to be home. Remember, he'd be gone for weeks at a time and then home. Right. And he saw me put my shoes on. And, by the way, smoking a cigarette, reading his paper, drinking his coffee. That was how.
And you guys are living where at the time?
Anaheim.
Okay.
Yeah. So I ran around the block once, and he looked at me like, "What are you doing?"
Right.
I go, "I'm getting in shape." So the next day was 2 times. The next day after that was 3. The next time was 4. The next day was 5. I decided I needed to change nutrition. This was it was the summer as I was going into 9th grade, so between 8th and 9th grade. I picked up the book, best book I've read in my entire life. Sure, it still exists. Sugar Blues.
Sugar Blues.
Don't even know who recommended it or how I got it, but I learned that sugar is bad. At the very end of the day, we all know that sugar is bad. Sugar is like the new cigarette, right?
Right.
So I read the book, completely changed my diet. Not how I eat now in weight training, but in a much healthier fashion. No sugar, reduced my calories. And that 3-month period, we have 3 months off for summer.
Yes.
The 3 months. I was also blessed. I was always on the taller side.
Okay.
But I grew like another 3 inches that summer.
So
so
balanced out.
Yeah. So
a little
lost
bit.
weight, grew longer, and then it's just because it is kind of funny. Back in those days, I would walk to the bus stop every day to go to the beach. I was really into the beach. I was into body surfing, and I was a rebel. I didn't cut my hair all summer. Right, so it was like 3.5 months, and it got from a dark color to it turned pure white. So I showed up at school the first day of 9th grade with hair past my shoulders, pure white. I'm now like 40 pounds lighter, 3 inches taller. My world changed.
Oh, that is awesome.
My world changed. People literally didn't recognize me. The initial bullying stopped. People were always going to be haters. So there was always haters because people were hating me now because I was taking all the football players' girlfriends.
A different type of hate.
Yes, it was a different type of hate. But anyway, that's just kind of a side funny story.
That is so good. We have more in common than you think, but continue. Continue.
Okay.
This is too good. This is way too good.
So going forward, I always still knew like, hey, I started getting into cars, and I bought my first car by myself.
Right.
My parents gave me a loan for half, and I paid her back. I paid my mom back in a year. Volkswagen Bug, yeah. But in my head, I always wanted a Porsche.
Right.
I wanted a Porsche since I was probably 12 years old. So I made that Bug look as much like a Porsche as I could. I got the right Porsche wheels. I did all the styling, knowing that someday I would. So that was my car.
That is
and
awesome.
did great in school. Got into college. This is kind of funny too. UC San Diego, I got accepted. It was easier to get into college back then with a 4.0. I know you can't get anywhere with a 4.0 these days, but back then. And I didn't go. I was like, I'm not ready to leave yet. So I went to Orange Coast College for a couple of years, and I was surfing, having fun, still doing my school. And I was 2.5 years into Orange Coast College, and I'd kind of backed off the throttle a little bit because I was really kind of enjoying my newfound,
Self.
newfound self. And my stepdad, who we didn't get along super great, we got really great towards the end, but it was he didn't slap me across the face, but verbally he said, "What are you doing? You're better than this." Because I was going to go another year to Orange Coast because I'm on surf team, I'm having all this
Yeah,
fun.
you're having a great time.
He's like, "It's time," and I'm like, "You're right." All right. So the verbal slap in the face, Cal State Fullerton, back grades up, got what I needed to do, business degree. And then this is a long-winded to answer your question, how I got to where I am today. But
this is cool.
I came out as a computer programmer. That was my it was my occupation of choice, right? So computer programmer. Rockwell International was a big aerospace firm at the time. Worked there a year. I'm like, God, I don't like this at all.
Right.
I go, must be Rockwell. I'll go find something else. Ford Aerospace. You don't even know what that is. That used to be in Newport Beach on Ford Road. Did that for about a year and a half. Like, I don't like this at all. I know what I'm going to get into sales. I know computers. I'm okay with people. Let me try that.
Right.
IBM was like the place. Like if you get a job at IBM, I had a hard no at IBM because I didn't have any sales experience, no sales training. So I did get a little coaching. They said, hey, try some sales support, and that will, it should catapult you into sales. I'm like, awesome. So I worked for some ATM manufacturing companies. So I used my technical background, and I helped the salespeople. So I was learning sales in the process. Did that for a year, and I finally decided it's time. I'm out. And so I found a guy that was willing to take a chance on me. And you talk about coaching and accepting coaching.
Right.
So this guy saw something in me that, like, I think I can do something with him. And he did a very classic. And by the way, it was selling complete hardware, software systems to small to medium-sized manufacturing and distribution companies.
Okay.
So you manufacture something, you distribute something. Here's your hardware. Here's your software. It was a package. Not glamorous, but it was fun for a couple of years.
Right.
So he said, "Look, you do what I tell you, right?" And he had the whiteboard. You do what I tell you. You make 10 calls. How many of you heard this? You're going to get 3 appointments, and he was very conservative. Right? You get 3 appointments. You're going to get 1 sale. I'm like, I can do that all day.
Yeah.
It worked. I was like,
so good.
I do the you and I were taught. We go to the gym. We know what to do, right? If you do what you need to do. I would make those calls. I'd set the appointments. Initially, he would go with me. So I was learning from him, kind of how to talk the talk, do the thing.
Right.
I was killing it.
That is awesome.
Having fun. Couple years now into it. Now I'm approaching 30, making really good money at the time. Just bought a house, got 2 kids. And I wake up one day and I'm like, this isn't me. I'm not, and I don't want to sound corny, but it's just absolute truth. I'm not changing lives, right? Making good money, got my house, don't have my Porsche yet, but I've got I've got a car, I'm
comfortable.
I'm jiving,
Yeah.
right? But this isn't me. So I had an advisor because I was doing pretty well. I have a financial advisor. You actually know who it is, that brought me into the business. And I met with him and I said, hey, this is kind of what I'm thinking. He's like,
Right.
this is a pretty good career. You see what I do here.
Right.
This is life changing, and you maybe consider that. So, like all big decisions, I'm slow to move on big decisions. Pretty quick on day-to-day stuff, but big decisions I process and I process and I process. So a couple months in, and I remember all my biggest decisions, like 2:00 in the morning, I sat straight up and I said, I'm doing this.
It is so
So then I had to get the gears in motion, which was when you enter my industry for the most part, there's no salary.
Right.
It's much like someone real estate,
right.
You get nothing. So I have mortgage payment, I've got family, and I want a new career. So now I'm doing I was doing 3 jobs. Ready for this? So I was doing my daytime selling computer systems, getting licensed initially at night, and then back in what would have been the early 90s, I'm making phone calls all night, getting people to come to seminars, doing all that, right? Scheduling that,
Right.
following up on the seminars. And then on the weekends, I'm a bouncer at a Newport Beach.
No.
Yeah, place called Margaritaville. Again, probably before your time.
I remember Margaritaville, not a Newport though, but
Yeah.
I remember Margaritaville.
So I'm doing all 3 of those things, trying to make it all happen.
Oh, that is so good.
And then I did that all 3 of those things for about a year, and then finally I was like, okay, I've got to a point where I can do this, I can survive. So
Right.
that job gone, full time into this. Now I'm licensed and I'm doing my thing, and that was 31 years ago.
That is. Well, how old were your kids at the time?
7 and 4.
Oh, that is awesome. Talk about true sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is so good.
Yeah.
I want to go back. There was so much there. I want to go. It was awesome. It was so good. We're going to dissect it. I want to go all the way back to you being the little fat Bart,
Yeah.
who I never thought in 1,000 years that was the case. But so was I. At 4 years old, 5 years old, I was a rolling ball. And mind you, you know me, I'm not that tall. I'm not that tall, right?
Yeah.
So imagine me even shorter, right? As I was fat. I remember being really fat.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of insecurities, and I would get picked on. I was consistently picked on at school.
Yeah.
And I remember my dad one day telling me, he goes, hey, you ever want a girlfriend? And you ever want like real friends? And I'm like, yeah, why? And he's like, maybe you should think about losing weight. Maybe you should think about it, because based on where you're going right now, you probably won't ever have any girlfriends, right? And I remember him telling me that. I was in the 7th grade. I was in the 7th
About
grade.
the same time.
Yeah, I was in the 7th grade, and I actually got into a fight. I was getting bullied, and I got into a fight. And I remember being so overweight. Like I was just, I went home, and my dad's like, I can only imagine in his mind, he's like, this is not my son.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way. Like, I raised this thing, right? And so he told me as nice as possible. And the next day, I show up from school, and there is an elliptical and a weight bench in the garage. And so he didn't ever say use it.
Yeah.
He just bought it.
Yeah.
And then he started to use it.
Yeah.
Right. And as sons like to do what their fathers do, right? I'm like, I'm going to try this out.
Yeah.
So I get on the elliptical and I go 10 minutes. And then he saw me and he goes, do you think you can do 20? I'm like, I think I can do 20. And he goes, go for 20.
Yeah.
And I went for 20. And I remember one day we came home. It was after dinner. And at the time I changed my diet. I'm eating green beans out of a can. I'm like trying not to, because before that was Hot Pockets and Pop-Tarts, right?
Okay.
And so I'm eating green beans out of a can. I remember one day we get home from dinner and he says, can you go 30 minutes? And I'm like, I think I can do 30 minutes. He goes, do you think you can do 30 minutes every day? And I go, I think I can do that.
Yeah.
And every single day I did 30 minutes until I lost all the weight I needed to lose. I didn't grow. I probably was the same height in 7th grade that I am today.
Yeah.
But the point is that it was a very similar story.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's crazy, right?
That is so, but you know what's cool is it's always those kids that had those challenging years that I've noticed become something in the future.
Yeah.
Do you think that's because from day one it's been a little bit more difficult for us to to get to where we want to go, where other people it may be a little easier?
I think that could be a point. I think the other is maybe we appreciate it more, right? Knowing that either we wouldn't have had or we didn't have it before.
Yeah.
And I think I'm a little more open with the story now than I was, years ago, because I think what's important, people look at you and look at me and like, oh, you guys have always had it. You've had it easy.
Yeah.
Everything you've done is just, you must have come to me. You must have come from money. You must have had an easy life. I'm like, no, far from the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't be further from the truth.
Right. It's, for me, it's a sense of, they say success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a little part of fulfillment that comes from it too, right? Just
Yeah.
knowing that we were able to do something that had we stayed stuck in the same mindset, we probably wouldn't have done,
Right.
because it was a change in mindset.
Right. For sure.
I love that. So let's go back to high school. No, I'm sorry. Right out of high school, you then joined. You get into computers.
Yeah.
There was that major decision that had you go from computers to sales, and a lot of people, and then from sales to wealth management, which is awesome. Yeah. And a lot of people know that they should move. They feel that, right? They know that this isn't for me. I have the Volkswagen. This is all great, but they never make the decision. So for you, what was that? I know you said there was those pivotal moments, but what was some mindset or some action steps that you took that made you make that decision? Because I talk to people every day that are just stuck where they're at and they don't know how to make that next step.
Yeah, I think the reasons that people don't is reasons that maybe it takes me long to make those decisions is ultimately it's going to be a step back, right? So, and even in my wealth management career, so the graphic, the kind of the graphical is doing good, making money. I want to do a new career. I'm going to have a step back in income because I did for 5 years. It took me 5 years to get back to where I was.
Right.
And I suffered and I lost some things in the process. Those were a tough 5 years, but I had my mindset that I know this is going to work. I knew I could make it work.
So good.
So I think it's just the discipline and then acknowledging that life is not a straight up arrow. I mean, who I don't know anyone that has that.
No.
And what I was referring to even in my business, so when I started, it's just me, right? I don't have no other employees or anything.
Right.
So, I'm about 4 or 5 years and I'm like, yes, I'm making the same money again. I'm feeling good. Well, I can't do this, right? I need an assistant. So what happens to my income? Notches down because now I got to pay for someone.
Right.
And then, it comes back up, finally made it again. And then, you hit a new high point and like, well, now I need some new technology. Now I need this. And, when I started my own practice a couple of years ago, like, wow, I've got to build out, this is quite a bit of money to build out an office. And I've got to hire some people and all this stuff. But like the vision is, this is what I want. I'm going to be able to do a better job for my clients. And ultimately that means good for me.
So good. So instead of a roller coaster kind of staying in one direction, it's a roller coaster going uphill.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I heard a saying a couple of years back. It says, sometimes we need to learn to slow down so we can speed up. Right.
That's a great saying.
Sometimes we have to learn to slow down to speed up. And I think that's that transition, right? You're slowing down life, right? We may not be able to buy what we want, may not be able to do what we want for the first couple of years, but with great sacrifice comes great reward.
Right.
And there's always a sacrifice.
And thinking long term, right? I mean, if you think short term, it's always about what can I do today so that I'm better today or tomorrow? Or what can I do today so I'm better in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now?
So good. So good. I love it. All right, so let's get into wealth management. So you transition, beautiful story, by the way.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. When did, we'll go to wealth management.
Yeah, no worries.
Baby girl, she's how old?
She's 7.5.
She's 7.5 years old.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
So full disclosure, 39, 35, and 7.
39, 35, and 7.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Talk about like step down.
That is
college again. I've got
all over again.
All that. I'm going to be doing all that all over again.
Is that pretty thrilling?
Oh, it's great.
That is awesome.
That's kind of what I figured I'm here on the planet for.
So good.
Right.
So good.
Family.
I just wanted to touch on that because I see pictures you guys post and it's cool.
Yeah, thanks.
That's awesome. All right, so wealth management. Tell us. Some of us know what wealth management is, but it was funny because one of the questions that I had from Instagram was, "Please help me understand what is wealth management." Right. So in lamest terms, right, if we could put it into a nutshell, what would you summarize it as?
Yeah. So the generic term and what a lot of advisors would practice is it's simply the management of money. Let's open an investment account. Let's buy stocks. Let's buy bonds. Let's maybe buy, I don't know, something else, some real estate or commodities, but we're managing money. So that can be considered wealth management.
Okay.
I look at wealth management in a very holistic point of view. So from a holistic standpoint, I'm also what's known as a CFP, Certified Financial Planner. So I'm looking at people's taxes. I'm looking at people's risk management. Of course, we're managing money. We're looking at estate planning. So, and estate planning, for those who don't know, it's basically planning for your demise. We want to make sure that your heirs are taken care of. We want to make sure you pay as little taxes as possible. We work on budgeting. We do helping for kids' college planning. If a client owns a business, making sure they're handling their finances most effectively and efficiently. And then also, what's their transition out plan? What does that look like? There's always taxes involved with that, and then there's, in many cases, there's a liquidity event, and what does that look like? So, from a holistic standpoint, that's what I consider wealth management.
That is awesome. And now, do all wealth managers follow that kind of overview?
Most wealth managers would be what I would call an investment counselor or investment professional, where all they do is manage money. It's not bad. That's their specialty, and a lot of guys do that well. No problem.
Right.
I just have been always holistic in nature, and
you took a bigger approach on it, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And so is that very similar to, did you in essence combine like asset management with wealth management?
So yes. So when I said investment manager, you could say asset manager, investment manager. That's what I would say is the most common definition of just managing money. And wealth management, in my opinion, encompasses all of that. So good.
Yeah. Well, and there were a lot of questions on that. There were a few people that said, well, I have an asset manager. Help me understand. Right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I've been from, how do I say this, demographically wise, right? My family is originally from Los Angeles, right? And you talk about wealth management to some of my family members, and it's just like, whoa, right? What are you talking about, right? And so that's why I asked some of the elementary questions before we get really into it.
Yeah, sure.
Because I think wealth management, I think we all can benefit from it if we really understood it, but a lot of us don't understand it. It's kind of like estate planning, right? You know, we deal with probate transactions, and it's insane how many people don't take time to just plan for the unknown.
It's a simple planning tool, and probate goes away. You know that.
So have you noticed a big change in the people the amount of clients that you attract, the people that you're helping, because you take more of this holistic standpoint?
Yeah, the clients that come to me, 95% of the time, they're looking for the whole thing.
I love that.
Because there are so many people that can just do the asset management, right? I'm sure similar to you, I don't want to say I work 24/7, but it's kind of 24/7. I'm taking calls, and it might just be the call that I received at 7:30 the other morning, driving from the gym to the office. Clients are buying a house in Portugal, and the husband and wife are. This is pretty funny. They're 25-year clients. They're arguing like almost fisticuffs about currency, the currency difference in Portuguese euros. I'm sorry, euros versus U.S. dollars. And she looked at it one way, he looked at it the other way, and I had to be the marriage counselor and explain it to them in mathematical, economic, and try to save the marriage.
So good. So good. So good. We do the same thing, talking them off ledges.
Yeah, that's what gets me going. Managing money is fun, and I've got teams to help support that, and we do all the due diligence and all the research, and I think we do a really good job at it. But it's like those calls where they're literally, he's like, oh, by the way, he's like 6'7" and she's 5 foot, and she rules the roost.
Oh, I'm sure.
And or on the call, he's like, Bart, I'm just going to step back, and I'm going to let you take care of it with her because I'm not saying anything.
Staying out of this.
That's just an example. That's just, I love that stuff.
I love that. It really does encompass all of it. And when I look at real estate, it's the same way, right? And it's interesting because the agents that aren't that successful, they don't deal with those problems, right? I've noticed the agents that are like, I just can't deal with this client. I'm like, well, what's going on? It's simply talking them off of those ledges, right? But like that's what makes the transaction.
Right.
So that's good. That's really good. For people that are just starting off, they don't know where to put their money. And I know every case is different, right? But this was a big question we had on Instagram is where do I park my money? Everybody says real estate, especially coming from real estate, right? But I meet some people that they go, I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want to own rentals, but they do want to put their cash somewhere. Where's a starting point?
So it's hard to answer without some more information, but let me tell you what kind of layers in through there. Like, what is your time horizon? If someone comes to me and says, look, I've got X number of dollars, but I need it in a year because I'm going to buy a property. Well, that significantly limits where I would put the money. In a case like that, currently I would do money markets and T-bills. They're paying, great rates right now. Since, Fed rose the rates, we're starting to get some nice yields there. It's safe. You're going to get your money.
What are the yields looking like?
Well, currently today, be careful with compliance. We're looking between 4.2 to upwards of 5, around 5, 4.2 to 5.
And that's always changing.
Yeah, I haven't seen that in 20 years ish, probably. Wow. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a great parking place. But if someone says, "Look, I'm saving. This is long term. I want to, obviously I want to retire someday." Great, that changes the whole dynamic. But again, I can't answer without more information because with every client, I sit down and we do a risk profile. It's not a big deal. It's 10 questions, but it asks the right questions and it comes up with a numeric indicator of where they are on their risk profile. We have models associated, and simplest is model number 1 is the most conservative. Model number 5 is the most aggressive. Right.
That makes sense.
We choose that, and then within that, they're pretty much the same assets. It's just what percentage in each. A more aggressive model will have more in equities. Equities are stocks, for those who don't know. They tend to have the better long-term return, but they're the most volatile. Just ask anyone who has an equity for the last year.
Right.
And then we also layer in. So we have 4 asset classes we use. We have equities. We have fixed income. Fixed income is bonds, which are like municipal bonds, government bonds, treasury bills, cash. We have real assets. You'll like that. So we have an allocation towards real estate.
Okay.
And we have, depending on the size of the account, we'll either do direct from private operators, or we'll do something that's securitized, like a REIT. I know you know what that term is.
Right.
But we think real estate exposure, this makes a lot of sense. And then lastly, it's a bucket for things that are none of the above, which is alternative investments. And what we're looking for there is really a hedge, an asset that will ying when the rest of the market yangs. And that was a savior last year when the market's all going crazy, and we've got something that's you know what correlated means? Correlated and non-correlated. It either goes in the same direction or opposite direction.
Okay.
So I'm looking for something that kind of marches to the beat of its own drummer. Stocks could go to zero, bonds could go to zero, and this guy's just going to keep doing what it's doing. Doesn't matter what stocks and bonds do, because stocks and bonds usually do opposite.
Back and forth, right?
Yeah. So it's some combination of that, depending on the risk. The higher the risk profile, the higher the growth potential, we usually do more equities. The lower, like the most conservative, we usually do the lowest in the equities.
The lowest. So okay, and that makes sense. So those of us that for the long-term cash, we would look more at the
diversified portfolio, probably more,
portfolio.
Heavier in equities and bonds and alts. And if it's a short term, then like we're cash and money market and T-bills.
That makes sense. And for somebody with this, do they need a lot of money to do this?
No. The answer is you can open an account with $500.
Okay,
right?
Good.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, and that was the next question on Instagram was how much money do we need to even be to have a wealth manager?
Yeah.
Right. And what, obviously there are some parameters, right? But what do those look like? Are there some wealth managers that take on anybody and everybody? How does that look?
Yeah. So the answer is all of the above. So I have a pretty mature practice, and I also have a bandwidth, right?
Right.
And so I need to take care of all my existing clients. So I have a stated minimum of $1 million.
Okay.
I have a friends and family, but that's my kind of my out, because I have clients that are like, hey, can you take care of my kid, or can you take care of my cousin or whatever?
Right.
Great, I'll do whatever I need to do for you. But if it's under $1 million, I have a junior partner in the office that can help, and then I also have a new professional acquaintance where her whole practice is helping people get started.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So it's all about, I'm going to help you budget. She's young, right? So she's going to be working with her peers.
Right.
right? We're just getting started. You know, I'm going to save a couple $100 a month. That's all I got. She's like, I'm in, right? So
That is
I have
cool.
someone I could refer to for that.
Because I remember I had a hang up, right? I wanted to reach out and ask, but my biggest thing was, well, I'm sure he takes on big clients, right? And this was when I first met you. It's like, where do I go if I don't have anything, right? And so for those of you that are listening in that are younger, because I know I do have a younger, my demographic for this show is all over the place, but there is a lot of younger millennials and Gen Zs that watch this. For those of you that, even if it's a couple of $100, right? Let's get started now, because it's just like buying real estate, right? They say, don't wait to buy real estate and wait, right? I wish I'd gotten started much earlier, right? I think my portfolio would have looked a lot different had I gotten started at 23, 24.
You know, and I did the same with my older kids. I said, look, just it's time in the market, not timing the market.
So good.
Because what you might hear, and it's probably the same with real estate. I know it's the same. Like, I can't buy now because it's at a high. Well, guess what? Especially for the younger people, so what? It won't even move the needle 20 years from now.
Nope.
And in the technical term is dollar cost averaging. When you're like, okay, it's $200 a month, I'm going to do it on the same day every month and invest. If the market's down, you should be like, yay, this is awesome because I'm buying more shares.
Right.
Don't even, okay, the value of my portfolio went down. No big deal.
No big deal.
Yeah. By the way, I would encourage anyone who is an employee and has a 401k to, as much as you can on 401k, you're getting the tax deduction. It's that automatic dollar cost averaging. If you do, if you're 20 and you start only do a couple $100 a month, I ran some numbers before where you're close to like $1 million by the time you retire or more. We don't know what market returns are going to be or anything, but it's just amazing. So the time in the market, compound interest. Albert Einstein was once asked, "What's the greatest invention of all time?" And he answered without hesitation, compound interest.
Compound interest. Yeah. Warren Buffett was asked, "What's the eighth wonder of the world?" And he said, compound interest.
All right. They had something in common.
So good. I love that. Well, it would make sense. Two of the greatest, right?
Yeah.
That is good. I like that. And let's talk about compound interest real fast. For people that are 20, 21, 22, right? That earn, and I'll let you explain, the SEP IRA.
Yeah.
Right? That's really good for that compound interest. A lot of us know what that is, but how much do you need?
Yeah.
And then I know there's a threshold for income on the SEPs also.
Yeah. So SEP IRAs are great if you're self-employed.
Self-employed.
Right? So if you're an employee, you do your W-2 employee, you do your 401k. If you're self-employed, and it works best if you have no employees. That's where it works the best, because then you don't have to put money in for your employee.
Right.
It's up to 25% of your adjusted gross. So to make easy math, so if you have $100,000 gross, or adjusted gross, so after you pay all your business expenses and all that, and you're left with an even 100,
right,
you can put up to that's a key word, up to $25,000.
Up to 25.
Someone says, "Hey, I can only do 7." No problem. Put 7 in.
Up to.
Yeah.
That's good. Even if they put a couple $100.
Yeah. Now, if they're going to do you could do a traditional IRA. Currently, $6,500 is the max. So if for the next couple of years, I'm just I can do a couple grand a year. I would just do a regular IRA, and then when you're like, hey, I've kind of blown through this, then you go and do a SEP.
Then you go and do a SEP. Okay, that's good to know. Good to know. You talked about there was when you looked at your business, you had 8 tenets of true wealth. What is that? The holistic standpoint, or help me understand what is that? That sounds pretty intriguing.
Yeah, that was years in the making, right? As I really kind of dove in, like what's really important in life, and what is the real definition of wealth? And I think if you ask anyone off the street, what's the definition of wealth, and they would go to Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, millions of dollars, billions of dollars, whatever it is, money.
Right.
Certainly, money is a tenet of wealth. Of wealth, but I think true wealth, as I've derived it over the years, there's 8 tenets, and the first one I say is health. I say health is the ultimate wealth. Now, why do I say that?
Because without health,
what do you got?
Nothing.
I mean, how many people do you know? And I've seen it over and over again. They work hard, like they've made a commitment. I'm going to make as much money as I can. I'm going to work hard. Great. They do a great job. They don't have any balance in their life. They're working. They're eating what would you call them, Hot Pockets?
Hot Pockets.
They're eating Hot Pockets and pizzas and not exercising because all I got to do is I'm working. I got to make that money. I got to make that money. And now they've got all that money set aside, And what have they lost?
Themselves.
Their health.
Yeah.
They're overweight, their heart, whatever, right? And so what do then? Is they have to use some lot of the wealth that they've accumulated to try to regain their health. It doesn't always happen. Usually doesn't. So I say health is the ultimate wealth.
That is so good. Yeah. It's as you say that, I close my eyes, I can think of a lot of people that are in that situation where they've sacrificed their health and now they are paying to get their health back. And it's like, well, what exactly did you sacrifice then?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's so good. So good.
Yeah.
What's number 2?
So I say family and friends.
Oh,
right?
I like that.
I mean, who do you know? And this is kind of a cliche, so it's not even fair to say, but no one sits on their deathbed, lays on their deathbed and says, man, I wish I would have worked more.
Yeah. No one.
No one would do that.
No.
So it's spending time with your family, but spending time with your family, having good friends. And that good friend definition, that's kind of interesting too, because I really think at the end of the day, at the end of your life, if you have 5 solid friends, I mean, we all have, your sphere and my sphere is ginormous. There's people that we know that, hey, buddy, how's it going? And like, that's huge. But 5 people that you could call in for any reason, anytime, you know they're going to pick up and you know that they got you. I think it's 5 over your life. If you have 5, you're wealthy.
I love that. That's good. Yeah. That's good. I'm a big believer in that all the way across the board.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Have you heard of Kevin Brown, this motivational speaker, Kevin Brown?
I've heard of him, yeah.
Had a chance to hear him speak 2 days ago in Vegas. And it's interesting because that was the biggest thing he talked about was the family and friends part.
Yeah.
And he says, when you look in the mirror, you should be able to see all of the people, family, friends, your top 5. Yeah. When you look in the mirror, you should be able to see a reflection of those people because it's those people who helped you get to where you are today. Yeah. And if you're looking in the mirror and all you see is yourself, we should probably do an ego test.
Yeah. Yeah, and then actually you could take that to the next level. Those 5, not only are they there for you and whatnot, but they need to bring you up.
So good.
Right?
Yeah.
And over the years, I've let friends go. They're great people.
Yeah.
But maybe they're always they're a couple that is always fighting or something. I'm like, that's just, you're not bringing me up, man.
No,
it's not.
Or our marriage.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like a marriage or a couple. It's just that's not working. I'm never. It's not like I'm never talking to you again. It's just like it's just not. They're not going to be part of the inner.
100%, because we are the average of the top 5 people we hang out the most. Yeah. And it's exactly what Ken Brown was saying on his speech, because we have to learn to remove people and add people, because there's certain seasons and people change.
Exactly right.
And there's nothing wrong to that. It's just protecting our 5.
And the seasons is kind of interesting too, because I look back and there's periods of time, seasons in our life where like, hey, we had such a great time with these great friends. And then the next season comes and I've tried to go. I've done this. I've tried to go back. I haven't seen this person in a while. I'm going to call, and it's like that season's gone.
It's gone.
Great person still. Yeah, nothing wrong. But it's just I'm here now,
and that's life. We're supposed to be growing.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So good. All right.
All right. Faith. And it took me a while. Once I had spiritual. Once I use other words, but at the end, faith. And I think which will mean different things to different people. Right. But ultimately, it's belief in something bigger than yourself. Belief in a higher power, and whatever that is, whatever that is for someone.
Right.
I think it's really important. And as a matter of fact, there was a study, and I can't remember the name of the book, but it was a study about centennials. And so that's for definition, that's someone who is over 100 years old. And they did a survey, like what was in common. So a couple great zingers. But one was every one of them had a faith. So there was no atheists, basically. So whatever the faith was, they had a faith.
They believed in
But the other two I really like. And it's funny because I'll relate it to someone that I know. So one was they all ate meat. There was no vegans.
Really? They all ate meat?
And you want to know what the third one is? They all drank
alcohol.
Some fashion on a regular basis.
You're kidding.
I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. I got to find the book because I referenced it enough that I got to fact check that so people can fact check it. But the funny thing is, I worked with a guy once. He was an advisor. He was a vegan atheist who didn't drink. So I came to him and said, "Bro, you got no chance.
You ain't making it to 100.
You're never gonna make it."
That is too good. Well, okay, if you see me bringing home beer and alcohol.
There's good reason.
That's too good. That is too good. I like that.
Yeah. So next one is service to others, right? And here's my perfect example of that. And you talked about where you grew up, and you all know where I grew up now. But I've got a good buddy. Actually, you know who this guy is too. You know who this guy is from the gym. He grew up in New Mexico.
Okay.
You know what it is yet?
No.
I'll tell you after the show.
Okay.
So he grew up in New Mexico. Very, very modest means, right? One of, I think, 4 kids. Made it like beyond. He's beyond, financial successful. But what he would do every year, what he's done over the last several years, is he calls the Walmart in the neighborhood that he grew up in, and he says, "I want to pay off every layaway." You know what layaway is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to pay off every layaway. And they're like, "That's amazing." So people would come to finish their layaway for their Christmas presents,
And
right?
be all paid.
And all paid off. So he's done that for years.
Oh, that
this
is
year,
incredible.
it's just this last year, he called and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. We don't have a layaway program anymore." He's like, "Man." So he said, "All right, no problem." So he calls the school and he says, "Hey, I want to give I'm going to give you a bunch of $100 gift cards. I want you to give it to every parent, every pupil's parents." They're like, "We need to get permission. We don't know if we can do this. So let me get some, call someone and get permission." So whoever the principal called,
Right.
they call him back in about 10 minutes. They're like, yeah, we can do this. 30 grand.
That is
He buys 30 grand.
incredible.
Gets better. And by the way, for those of us that are tax minded, that's not even a charitable contribution. He's just buying $30,000 worth of Walmart cards out of the kindness of his heart. There's no motivation for tax.
There's no
saving.
back end thinking.
I'm talking to him because he's a client too. I'm like, "I love what you're doing, but can we find a way to get you?" Anyway,
Yeah,
he doesn't care.
yeah.
So, he tells them, "I don't want them to know where it comes from." And they're like, "Okay." And he goes, "Hey, but my sister still lives in town, so I'm sending the cards to my sister, and she'll distribute them when they come to pick up the kids." They're like, "Okay." So sister shows up to give to the parents. The news trucks are there. So somehow it leaked that some previous student is doing this. News trucks come up, get a hold of the sister, and she's just, "All I have is the cards."
Yeah, I
She's
know.
like, "It's my brother. Here, talk to him." So now he's on the phone talking to the reporter. They do this whole local newspaper article, and I sent it out in my. So he was nice enough to send it to me because he knows how I roll, and I put it out in my newsletter as an example of there's a total true wealth
That is true wealth.
example right
That
there.
is true wealth.
So that's service to others.
That is awesome. And a true service to others, too.
True.
Oh, that is too good. That is too good.
Yeah.
Logan, you like that? That was good, dude. That was really good.
All right. So the next one I have is legacy. And legacy, you can kind of connect that to estate planning. There's kind of a connection there, right? And
Right.
making sure that your final plans, like whatever it is. Some people have legacy. Drive down PCH in Laguna. There's names of people all over the buildings. That's how someone wants to see a legacy.
Right.
Another legacy, maybe for you and I, was like, I want to see that my kids, not that they're taken care of, which I plan to do in some sense, but that they know how to take care of themselves.
Right.
That they're good human beings. That they know the value of the dollar. They know how to be nice to people and care for people. That I think is a legacy.
So good.
And I think kind of a definition I've derived a legacy is things that money can't buy and death can't take away.
That's got me thinking.
Good one, right?
Yeah, that's a really good one. Say that again.
Things that money can't
Things
buy
that money can't buy
and death can't take
and
away.
death can't take away. That is so good. Reminds me of my father-in-law. He recently passed away, my wife's dad. And he was a very hard worker. He did leave some things on the table when it comes to work.
Yeah.
But the legacy that he left with his daughters and the man and the father who he was, how he raised his children.
Yeah.
No one at his funeral mentioned his corporation. No one mentioned the clients he helped. No one mentioned the business he built. Everyone mentioned how he left the girls, how he was there for the girls, how he put everything to the girls. And
That's priceless right there.
it changed my way of seeing things, because I think so many of us get caught up in this monetary sense, and instead of being there for the soccer practices, for the baseball practices, we're at appointments. And there was not one soccer match, there was not one volleyball match that he ever missed.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's definition right there. I love that. Sounds like a good man. All right, final three. Peace or inner peace.
So good.
I mean, on a daily, that's one of my daily meditation prayer. By the way, I have a 20-minute drive to the gym, and I know it sounds weird, but I'm on total cruise control. No music on, no news, and I do my daily prayer, meditation, and part of that is asking for peace, because I'm in my day-to-day, like even I looked at today, I have this show, which I was excited about. I have like 12 things scheduled out today. I'm running and trying where I'm going. Anyway, and then I'm trying to balance, I have my older kids with my grandkids. I have my younger kid who's younger than my older grandkids, and try to balance that and spend time with them and make sure my wife is happy, and I have staff and all. That's a lot. Well, I think it's a lot. It's maybe not a lot for everybody, but
No, it's a lot.
try to have peace and balance with that. And so, a prayer just to be able to just have that time.
That's good.
Anyway. And then this one, and I have to give credit to my wife on this one, is she is a non-financial. If there's ever a definition of a non-financial spouse, which do you guys have in the real estate world? Do you call there's a financial spouse, one who kind of makes the decisions, and then there's a non-financial, like here, honey, whatever.
Yeah. That's
my wife she's the ultimate of that. She doesn't care less. Never wants to hear the news.
Yeah.
Her friends will say, Bart must be really stressed out because of the market. She's like, really? I don't know
what's going on.
Anyway,
I love it.
We were creating this, and she helped kind of with my, the branding and creating my office. And I told her I was working on this, and I had them all except for this last one. She goes, honey, what about the invisibles? I'm like, I know we've talked about that. She's like, so my youngest daughter's name is Tehani. Remember when Tiny came up to you the other day and just said, I love you, Papa? Just out of the blue, like wasn't asking for anything. I go, yeah, of course. She's like, it's an invisible right there. How else do you quantify or classify that moment? Or sitting, we have a beautiful view from our house, and it's a beautiful sunset, maybe having a glass of wine. That's a moment right there. That's an invisible moment that you can't really quantify.
So good.
So there's no real definition of invisible. Everyone has their own kind of definition of invisibles, and things may just happen.
I love that. And it brings us really present when we think about those invincibles.
Yeah. And she's so great about that, because I'm looking for peace and I'm doing all this stuff, and something happens. She's like, it was an invisible, right? I'm like, thanks, honey.
Back to you. Yeah. That's so good. Because a lot of the times we're present, but we're just not accounted for.
Yeah.
And we're there, but we're not there.
I do rest. I get called out. Her and my 7-year-old call me out on that.
That is.
Put your phone down.
Right.
You're right. So actually the rule at my home is when I get home while they're awake, it goes up on the top shelf, and I don't see it for the next 3 hours.
I like that. I need to start doing that.
It's hard.
Yeah.
But it's the right thing to do.
Oh, absolutely.
As a dad and as a husband.
Yeah.
And the last tenet is finance, is money. Right?
It's the last one.
Yeah. But, well, I mean, how important is it? We all want, and I think the best definition of purpose of money is financial independence.
Right. True financial independence.
Yeah. Meaning, we may get to a point, we are going to get to a point someday where we're like, if I never earn another penny, I'm fine.
Right.
That's kind of like the old definition. People would say retirement. I don't like that, because my clients are retiring younger, and I still want to be active when I'm quote unquote retired.
Right.
But financial independence means I'm going to keep doing what I don't need to. I just keep doing because I love what I do. And for some, it might be, I'm not a golfer, but maybe they're going to go be a golf pro or go work at a bait shop or whatever.
Right.
Just because they want to. They don't have to.
Exactly. So good. I love that. Yeah. I love that. And most importantly, I love that it's the last one. And I said it was the last one when you said that, because we didn't start with it. There are all these, and I don't know if you put them in chronological.
No, that's order.
That's in order. Okay, good. Because without any of these, this is it's obsolete. There's really no point, right? Because without peace of mind, you can be uberly wealthy and super successful, but you end up, like we see quite often, you end up crossing over the bridge because you chose to by yourself. That's not, I don't care how much money you have. That doesn't mean anything.
I know people that have that, the last one, the money, enough to live all this stuff and seeing a psychologist for depression.
Oh yeah. I mean,
That's not uncommon.
Look at Robin Williams. He gave his entire life.
Yeah.
And so it's and he's uberly financially.
Oh, I'm sure.
The owner of Zappos took his own life. He had more money than you can dream of.
Yeah.
But because of the top, right, the sector above the finances, the sector that a lot of us don't talk about, the Invincibles, was just so good. Like it's so good. It puts life. What I believe it does is it prolongs life. It really prolongs life, and then it makes this whole wealth, this financial sector that we're freaking chasing after, it makes it much more worth it. Right, because
totally.
My buddy always says, he goes, "There's not a U-Haul following behind the hearse. There's not a U-Haul following behind the hearse.
Yeah.
But there is. What did he mean to me?
Yeah.
What did she do?
The legacy.
The legacy. That is so good.
Like your father-in-law.
Yeah,
That's the best.
that's good. Name them off again.
All right. Health, family and friends, faith, service to others, legacy, peace, invisibles, finance.
And those are the 8 tenets of wealth.
True wealth.
True wealth. I love that. That's so good. That is so good. You've done some incredible things in your career and in your life. You know, a lot of people may see where you're at now and be like, "Oh, great, you know, he's..." But I have a question. I don't know if you get asked often. What's next?
That is a good question, especially as, when I get asked a lot now is, I think it's the more gray in my beard. Like, if a new client comes, or I've had a client for a while, like, what, are you going to be around for a minute? You know?
My money safe? My money safe?
And the truth is, like I mentioned earlier, I love what I do, you know, and to continue to do what I do, create an independence that gives me some flexibility. You know, I think you already know that I do live part-time in Tahiti, so I do have some flexibility. I'm able to work there. It's like, that's my work from home week, you know, every couple of months. But to be able to do more of that. But I can't see myself, not these, we talk about close friends and so forth, but I've had, I don't know, I have 20, 30 clients that I've had for 30 years. I can't see just like saying, "See ya." I mean, I'm working with their kids now, and it's just part of my life. So I guess just keep doing what I'm doing is what I'm going to do next.
I love it. I love it. No, and there's never a right or wrong answer. It's always what, I just didn't know if there was something else, but that is awesome. Would you say maybe spending more time in Tahiti, or do you like the balance? So how much time do you spend out there?
I'm there about a week every 6 weeks.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I call that building a lifestyle, and then you've put your business into it.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Versus building a business and trying to fit your lifestyle into it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
I love that. So Tahiti, you also mentioned another part of Tahiti.
So Moorea is an island on Tahiti, and that's where we have our house.
That is awesome. Is it on the beach?
Yeah.
That is incredible. That is incredible. That's incredible. But the story shows, right? You've worked from where you started to get to where you are at today. Yeah. We didn't talk about, well, we did a little bit, but I want to just briefly talk about the importance of health. We went into it, but I don't think we dove deep enough to really, what I want to say is really help somebody that may be struggling in that sector. Because for me, guys, I look at every day, just so you know, when I get up and go to the gym. I recently had a kid, so the last couple of months have been interesting. But prior to that,
you have a pass.
Yeah. Prior to that, if I didn't get up, I knew that Bart was there, right? I knew that Bart was at the gym every single day. Like, I can count to know that you're there. I don't know if you've noticed, but I'll get there and I'm like, Bart's here, right? Bart's here. It's something, it's motivating, right? But I know that there's a lot of people that struggle with that health. They're a master at their business and they do a great job at their business, but they struggle with the health. What are some key things that you've learned from health that you could tell the audience that can really help them?
So, I mean, a couple of things. One, obviously, it's making it a commitment.
Okay.
And to me, like you, if working out in the morning is like brushing my teeth. If I don't work out, it would be as gross as like, oh man, I didn't brush my teeth this morning. That's unacceptable, unheard of. I can't do it. And even on my quote unquote days off, my active, I call them active rest. I still go in just because it's just part of
Right.
what I am and who I am. And in like we were talking about earlier, and I had a little incident where I messed up my knee, so I had surgery. So I had 9 days where I couldn't. I was in bed, leg tied up, so I couldn't go.
Right.
I was losing my mind. There was nothing I could do like to satisfy that part of my being.
Right.
And it was really sweet and cute because I had so many people when they knew of this. It was a hiking accident, and I ruptured. I don't know if I told you, I ruptured the quad tendon off the knee.
Oh,
so
how
like
do
an
you do that?
Achilles rupture.
Yeah.
So you have the quad is 4, and you have the tendon, and so it snapped, and so the whole quad rolled up on my thigh.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's kind of a rare, and it was just this. The stars, the moon, weekend, and I was just hiking downhill, and my foot slipped, and that jerking motion snapped, and then I fell and rolled. I had to crawl down the mountains. I was all by myself. And
You were by yourself?
in Tahiti with no phone on a mountain.
You were in Tahiti?
Yes. Yeah, so it's a pretty good story now that I look back at it.
What was going through your mind as you're crawling down the hill?
Well, prior to the crawling, and it was actually, you talk about true wealth. It was a beautiful day, and it's all lush. This is Maria, so it's green and lush, and it's sunny, and I'm like 70% done, and I'm thinking about my daughter Tehani, like she's getting more active, and we climbed a lesser mountain, and I was thinking, hey, I'm gonna take her on this just to see how high she can get up.
Right.
And it was right. I remember thinking that, and right after that thought, and then I collapsed because she can't try to imagine standing on a leg with no quad connection.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
So you did try to stand up.
So that's where I knew I was messed up because I'm like, why am I laying on the ground? My leg hurts, and I know something is wrong with my knee.
Right.
But let me just get up and I'll we'll figure it out.
Walk
And
it out.
I tried the attempt of trying to stand up. Then I saw the grapefruit on my leg, which was my quad muscle, and collapsed again. I'm like, well, this isn't good. And I remember I was laying on my back, looking at, knowing that this is a private mountain. That we have a friend that owns it. There's a gate. No one goes on this mountain.
No one's going to find you.
No one's gonna find me. And I started laughing. Like 5 minutes in, I'm like, this is it. This is how
I'm going out.
this
Really?
is gonna go. And the funny thing is, like, there's wild roosters. I'm gonna get attacked by wild roosters.
They're gonna eat me alive.
So I finally realized, well, eventually my wife will figure it out, and eventually that could be hours. And so I'm just gonna try this. I rolled over, and I started army crawling and dragging my leg, using my elbows and crawling. And at like 200 yards or so, there was a fence, and I pulled myself up. And then I figured, I held on and hopped and hopped and hopped, and took, what would have taken me 20 minutes took me an hour and a half to crawl.
Oh, that would have been a good camera moment. It would have been a great camera moment.
Just the final kind of comedy to that is, so my wife, by that time, she knows my cadence. It's usually an hour round trip,
Right.
and now I'm almost 2 hours into it. She knew something's wrong. She said, okay, I can see it. Okay, let's get in the car. We'll go to the emergency room. Maria is an hour around. It's a small island. There's one hospital emergency room. She takes me there, and I'm sitting in the back with legs stretched out as I can't bend it. They pull me in. They get a wheelchair. They don't have the wheelchairs are old and rickety, so I use this leg to hold the other leg out because there's nowhere else to put it.
Oh,
and then they're like, we're on lunch break.
you have to wait. No. And they take their lunch break.
Oh, they take their lunch break. I knew I wasn't dying, so I'm like,
this is
okay,
too
this
good.
is island life.
This is too good. What did your wife say when she got there?
Well, French is her primary. My wife speaks French, so she's talking to them, and she ended up one of them. She goes, "Hey, this lady's like a grandma, and we're talking about this and that." I'm like, "Hello." I need a little help. And she goes, oh, they'll get back to you after lunch break.
That is way too good. When she found you, what did she say?
She just took one look at me and look on my face and said, let's go. Let's go. I know what's wrong. And I'm like, well, there's something wrong with my knee, my leg. I don't know what it is.
Wow. That is, I didn't know how it happened. That's a crazy story. The fact that you had to crawl for survival is too good. That's a story to always be told. Well, that's too good. And then, like Bart, 3 days later, he's in the gym. How much after were you in the gym?
I'm sorry, I got sort of versed. So it was when people found out that they were like, they're very sweet, like, gosh, it's going to be so hard because we know you're so active and you like to go to the gym. And I'm like,
Right.
what's going to be so hard? I'm gonna be back at the gym next week. So I don't know if I saw you, but I had a full leg brace. Yeah, like groin to ankle. I'm just like, I'm at the gym. I've got another leg. I've got 2 arms. I've got a torso.
I can bench press. I can
Just worked out everything else. Kept
so good.
figured out a new cardio. I was doing battle ropes for cardio instead of the stairs.
The stairs.
We figure it out, right?
That is so good.
And I'm sorry, we got so diverted. So to getting back to people what to do, and a common thing that I hear, and you probably do too. So I don't have time. I'm
The
just
biggest
so
excuse.
busy. So I have a response. I don't mean to be like cynical. I said, well, how many hours a day do you have? 24 hours. Wow, same as me. I'm running a business. Are you running a business? Yeah. What are you doing at 3:34 in the morning? I'm sleeping. Well, maybe that's a great time. Well, I've got kids. Well, you get up, you have the gym at 4, you're home at 5:30. Kids aren't getting up yet. You're still getting them up for breakfast. There's really no reason not to.
Yeah.
It's just making the commitment. And I would say, much like when I ran on the block one time, start out slow. Because you know when you first get started, you're going to find stuff that you didn't know existed on your body. You're going to be sore. There's no doubt about it. Come in for 20 minutes your first time, and then 30, and then 40. And just get into a routine.
So good.
Yeah.
I love that.
And by the way, nutrition, kind of close up on that.
Yes.
To me, overall health and fitness is at least 80% nutrition. You could kick your butt in the gym, and if you're still, I'm going to use it, you're still eating those Hot Pockets, it's not going to make it.
It's not
You're not going to move the needle.
No, especially the older you get. I'm seeing that, definitely for sure. I'm not even anyways. Yeah. I noticed though at 24 is much easier than it was at 32.
Every decade, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a new.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I want to touch on the injury though, and this is really cool, guys, because I've noticed that those that are really active, like Bart, when an injury does happen, you recover much more quickly than those that aren't as active.
I don't have any science to that, but I think proper nutrition before and during and after I think helps with that, and just the fact that your body is attuned to that and movement, and then getting back kind of to the movement thing. So when my workouts in Tahiti are different because there's no gym, right? So I've made my own little gym, like outdoor yard, but it is different. And this particular time when I went, it was very hot, very humid, so I didn't work out as long because it was too hot by the time I got my daughter to school, and it was just too much. So I worked out not as much. Just by having a reduced amount, not moving as much, my knees were getting sore, my lower back was getting sore, everything. I just did not feel good. And I got back here, got in the gym within like 48 hours, like getting back to my normal routine. Right. And it's like oil, like Tin Man on Wizard of Oz. It's like oil was getting everywhere, and I feel like I'm back in the
game.
Yeah.
That's good. That is good. I could definitely testify. And then also on the other end, when you're really overweight, it's that process to get there. But like Bart said, guys, start off small, and especially waking up in the morning. Like I didn't just wake up at one day at 4:30 and was like, oh, I'm gonna wake up every day at 4:30. Yeah. Right? It's a thing. If you're having a hard time getting up at 6, try 6, right? Try 6:30. Let's try 6:30 today. That's a win, right? Okay, tomorrow, let's go 6:15. That's a win, right? Yeah. And it's those little wins from what I've noticed, especially from when I was fat, it was all of those little tiny wins that gave me more confidence. Because I lacked a lot of confidence. I was so insecure, right? But I would notice when I did that 30 minutes, I got off the 30 minutes and I was like, yeah, I own that. Like, let's go, right? And it filled me up a little bit.
Oh, totally.
So for those of you that are lacking confidence, try it out. Who knows?
And honestly, just if you're really, really just getting started, walking. If you're going from zero, like nothing, walk. And walk around your block. Don't even get a gym membership. Walk around the block. Walk around twice. Walk around 3 times. Get the heart moving a little bit. Work on nutrition, walking, and then start progressing.
Yeah. Well, and they say, have you read the book How Not to Die?
I've heard of it, haven't read it yet.
It's pretty good. I mean, they talk about meat though, so who knows?
Yeah.
But what they do talk about on How Not to Die is when you're looking at nutrition, when you're looking at the way that we're eating, when we're looking at when you look at it as a whole sector, if we can learn some basic things, some basic nutrition, some basic working out, this doesn't need to be over the top. Right? What I like about How Not to Die is how they simplify it, because complexity is the enemy of execution, right? And the reason why a lot of us don't take action is because it's so complex, right? And what I love about the book is it simplifies diet and it simplifies health in just a really small sector to help people digest it. Yeah. That's big. I love that.
One I've just picked up, you'll appreciate then along the same lines, Peter Attia. Have you heard of him yet?
No, not yet. Peter Attia.
He is he doesn't like the name because it doesn't always have the best connotation, but he's an MD that used to be a cancer surgeon, left all that behind, and now he focuses just on longevity. And he's solid. So the book is Outlived.
Outlived. Okay, I got that. I wonder if that relates, because the big theme in How Not to Die is the number one cause of death is cardiovascular. Right, is some sort of heart attack. Yeah. Right. My father-in-law, unfortunately, it was a heart attack. Like literally, you had no idea that there was even something wrong with him. Right. But that being the leading cause of death, direct correlation to nutrition, direct correlation to working out.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's definitely all connected. Peter's is into. And these are things that I'm starting to maybe think about,
right?
Like cold plunge and fasting and obviously proper nutrition,
right?
That kind of stuff.
That's what he talks about.
Yeah,
that's big. Tony talks about that. Tony Robbins has a health and wealth mastery, and he talks about the cold plunges.
Yeah.
The breathing. Sahar does the breathing with Wim Hof. Yeah. He had him there. That's interesting. I'm going to read that book.
Yeah, you like was it Life Force, that new?
Life Force.
So I don't think Peter's connected to that at all, but I think there's some very similar paths.
Similarities there.
Yeah,
I like it. Real fast, I'm going to my phone dropped. I'm going to see if there's any more questions from Instagram. This has been really fun, by the way, Bart.
Yeah,
this has been awesome. Let's see. All right. Well, you answered that one. Where to first put your money? We talked about your story. And this is an interesting question. So it's a new self-employed, just got into real estate. He's a new agent. He says, when does somebody need to start a P&L? How important is it for me to stay on top of my accounting? It's a very simple question, but I'm bringing it up because he's a younger gentleman, and I know people, especially real estate agents, for some reason self-employed like real estate agents or mainly real estate agents, they don't have a P&L. In fact, they don't even know what a profit and loss statement is. In fact, most of them haven't filed their taxes in about 7 years. And a lot of them have no idea what their net income is, right? Yeah. And so I know this is a basic elementary question, right? But for someone like him, he's 19 years old. Yeah. What would you tell him?
Well, what a great age to ask that question. I would say year one.
Immediately.
And P&Ls are going to be very simple when you're first getting started. This is what I spent. This is what I made. This is hopefully profit. Sometimes not, right? You spend on marketing. You did all this stuff. So I didn't have a profit this year. That's okay. That's the step down before the step up. But tracking so you're prepared for taxes so you don't get years behind. And then also so I can set goals, right? Mm-hmm. This was my gross income this year, whatever it is, 50 grand year one. I want it to be 100 next year. And you can start tracking your goals.
So good. I like that. A simple way to do that is just like on Excel?
You can do Excel. I actually like QuickBooks, and you can really simplify QuickBooks like just to the line items that you need, income, whatever the source is. Right. And then, if you're just getting started, you have your phone bill, you have your marketing expenses, whatever else you guys have.
That's
pretty
good.
Simple. And I love QBO, QuickBooks Online. That way, from your phone, from your iPad, from your computer, it all goes to the cloud.
It's all easy to access.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that. Well, Tristan was the one that asked that question. He's a newer real estate agent. It's really good. I'm glad that you asked that. Tristan is actually my younger brother.
Ah,
He's my younger brother. Yeah.
All
So
right.
he's getting into the business, and he was asking some questions, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to ask it because there's no such thing as a stupid question.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I like that. Is there any remaining parting words that you would like to leave the audience with, based off your incredible journey of where you've ended up, the amount of money that you have, that you're able to help other people with, the amount of how you're able to take assets and wealth management and turn that into something? You've created a beautiful life. What are some parting words to those that want to know, Bart?
Yeah, I think it's just really important to, I call it, and I learned this from a coach many, many years ago, so it's not my term, but it's blueprinting. Spend the time to go through, and maybe your industry has it. This one was kind of geared for my industry, but to understand what your long-term goals are, what your vision is, your own vision, your own mission, and then, like, my vision statement is different than a vision. So my vision statement is something I read through every day also, and it's me reading what my life is or will be. Like one of the lines was I have a vacation home that the whole family uses. I wrote that 25 years ago.
Well, that's awesome.
And now, not unconsciously, we
Right.
have this second home, and my family hasn't used it as much other than my direct family, but it's like beginning with the end in mind. It's envisioning, right, and things happen. So you do it every day, and it just becomes part of. And what's on there also, and this is again being a little bit raw, but the very last paragraph is when I recently extended the age. It was earlier before, but on my 90th birthday, it used to be at my 75th. I'm like, that's not that far away. I gotta move that out. So on my 90th birthday, I take a 1 mile walk along the beach with my wife, holding hands.
Oh,
At the end, we go in the house, and my friends and family are there. We have a cake, and I blow out the candles. So if you read into that, I'm 90, not 75.
Yeah.
90, I could still walk a mile on the beach.
Yep, you're healthy.
My wife still must kind of like me. She's holding my hand.
She's still there.
Still there. And I got family and friends. I still have enough breath to blow out a candle.
I love that.
And I got family and friends that are with me on my 90th birthday.
The invincible.
Invisible. Yeah.
Oh, that is so good.
Yeah.
Bart, this was awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. This was good hearing your story. Interesting how many common things that we,
You know, we have another common thing. I don't know if you know this. You know what my middle name is?
Matthew.
Adrian.
No, is it really?
Yeah.
Let's go. That is awesome. Yeah. I say Matthew. That was my middle name. I don't know if you knew my middle name, but your middle. So it's Bart, Adrian.
Yeah, after my grandfather.
Your grandfather's name was Adrian.
Yeah.
That is incredible. Was he short and fat too?
I am taller than he was.
It's funny. Well, that's why I, found my wife, because my son will be much taller, thankfully. Well, Bart, this was awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show. For those that want to follow you, and I know you have an awesome podcast where you share about, your journey, you share about what you do, and not only that, but you give a lot of wealth management tips. For those that would like to find you, how do they find you?
Oh, that's awesome. So the podcast is called the Zanbergen Report. I'm on all the iTunes and Spotify and all the regulars. Our website is zanbergengroup.com. And podcast try to focus on wealth management, but also lifestyle stuff. Like, little known fact, I'm also a sommelier. So I'm a purveyor of wine. And so sometimes we have shows just talking about wine.
That's right. I've seen
sometimes we do a thing on style. I'll bring in someone and we'll talk about style. So I try to do, mix it up a little bit.
Right. And you guys, Bart has the best style I've ever seen, by the way, hands down. Every time I see you, dude, I'm like, where does he get his clothes? And it's cool. I happen to be I have to show you this picture. Exactly 5 years ago, in a couple of days. Here, let me find it. Where did it go? Logan, you notice when you take a screenshot on your iPhone, it vanishes? Here it is. So exactly 5 years ago on March 28th, I was on Bart's show called the OC Talk Show.
Yeah, 5 years ago.
That was 5 years ago. I was losing my mind running a brokerage, and I don't even know who I was back then. So Thanks for having me on.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, you guys, and also for those of you that are interested in wealth management, because I know there are a lot of big players that watch this show, you guys, without shadow of a doubt, hands down, if you asked me who do I recommend, it's this gentleman right here. So go to his website, reach out to him. I really want to start working with you, especially now knowing what I know, especially the fact that you embody all of it. So Bart, I just want to thank you so much for the light that you are to this world, for who you are, and thank you for having me on the show.
It was my pleasure, my man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.